if you're writing about something and recommending something and it's not genuine, I think people see through that. I hope so. More often than not, that they can kind of see through that, and that it's not keeping their interests in mind. I don't think anyone should just rely on their one job at their career, and if that job is making them work 60 plus hours a week, there's a problem there, because they're so tied to that job and they don't have any spare time then to do something else on the side. I agree that there's some people that can't, but there's people that just want their me time. They want to sit in front of the TV all evening and watch TV and hang out with their spouse, and that's totally fine. But if you're also complaining that you never have money and you can't do anything, then you have to kind of make that decision of, maybe I should be doing something to earn a little money on the side, just trying things out, experimenting a little. There's so many options to make money now.
This is the Personal Finance Show.
Hi, I'm Bo Humphreys, and this is the Personal Finance Show. Tom Drake is known as the godfather of Canadian personal finance bloggers. In fact, Tom just hit his 10-year blogging anniversary this month in February 2019. Originally Canadian Finance Blog, Tom rebranded to Maple Money and now even has a podcast called The Maple Money Show. I was on as a guest in November 2018. Tom has created thousands of personal finance posts over the years, and he did it all while working a full-time job during the week at a company that he started with 18 years ago and still works at today. If you listen to the show, you've heard me talk about FinCon, North America's largest personal finance conference. I did episode 51 live from FinCon 2018 in Orlando. Well, Tom has been to every single FinCon since 2011, and I'm sure I will see him again this year in Washington, D.C. Tom joined me from Calgary, Alberta, to tell his personal finance story.
I think my first money memory, or maybe money mistake, was back in college. I was signing up for the credit cards you can get at college, where it's the one that sort of has your college on the card and it doesn't offer you anything. I don't even think I got a t-shirt with it. I literally just signed up for it.
But it has the college on the card. That's fancy.
Yeah, well, I thought it was the one I was supposed to get, and it was my first credit card. I barely had a job. I think I had a part-time job at the time.
So you got a credit card, and were you already in debt for school, or was that already covered?
Yeah, I had a student loan. It wasn't a big one. I went to the local college. I think by the end of my 2 years there, I think my total student loans were maybe $10,000. It wasn't this crippling debt by any means. Now, the mistake I made there, as well, speaking of college mistakes, is a larger portion of my student loan than should have went to things like a car stereo.
Yeah.
And
sure.
I got the textbooks as well, but
but there was some left over.
Well, it felt like free money. I went from I never had a job at all in high school, so I never sort of learned how to actually earn money, not just have it handed to me as an allowance or something like that.
So your parents would just, if you needed something, you'd be just like, can I have some money?
Yeah, they never really wanted me to sort of be without. So it's not that it was
that's cool,
endless money, but I certainly was able to ask for things, and if it made sense, I'd get it. So it felt nice as a kid, but I think it made me very unprepared come college.
Yeah, so you wanted this stereo for your car, and you just went and got it because you had, available credit.
Yeah, well, all of a sudden, I think that first year, or that first payment, at least for my student loan, I think it was $2,000 or $3,000. So I bought my textbooks, had all this extra money sitting in the bank, and wanted to get at least part of a car stereo. I always had car stereo stuff in high school, but some new upgrade. I don't even remember what it was at the time.
Like, you could have waited, or you didn't really think about the impact that putting this on credit would have for you.
For sure. Well, and it didn't even feel like it was going on credit there, because it was coming out of my bank account. It was this magical student loan that
from the loan. Yeah. Okay. I see.
Yeah. Racking up the credit card came next. Once I realized I still needed to do things like eat, pay rent.
So there was no budgeting, anything like that. It was just like, go out into the world, Tom, and make your mistakes.
Yeah, pretty much. All my mistakes were pretty much in college and maybe the couple of years after that. I just didn't really have much experience with money before college, and I made my mistakes then. It did cause me to sort of miss probably a good decade that I probably could have been doing things like saving up and investing, because I had to kind of get money figured out and also pay off this debt that I was starting to accumulate. I never had a massive debt. I don't have this huge debt payoff story, but it was always kind of a revolving debt. Use a credit line, pay it off, use it, pay it off. Yeah,
so you're buying things that you didn't necessarily need. Was that the main source of continuous debt?
Oh, for sure. Still have and need to get rid of a very large collection of CDs and video games.
Okay. Yeah.
And at the time, even VHS tapes and DVDs.
Do you still have the VHS tapes?
No, I was able to sell those. I think
Okay.
I sold all of them. It was probably like 200 of them, probably for $200, and the stands that they were included on. So,
Wow.
But I still have the CDs, and I still have most of the video games, which I've been trying to sell. So not only was this a spending problem in college, but it's kind of like a hoarding problem I still have. It's not that I want to, so at least I've passed that point.
Yeah.
But now I'm just sort of stuck with it, where it's like I got to try to figure out how to get rid of it, how to still get some value for it. I don't want to just completely decide to just give it all away. So some of it might still have value, but I think things like CDs probably don't anymore.
That's tough. I've tried to sell those, and yeah, you get like nothing for them. It's almost like just getting someone to take them is the only thing that you can get these days.
Yeah, and it might come down to that, or I at least find out anything that might have value and select those out. But otherwise, yeah, like I don't need to use half my garage to store stuff
Exactly.
that I bought 20 years ago.
Well, and at least you're not, you don't have to rent a storage space or anything, and it's not costing you money. But I guess you could use that space for other things.
Yeah, I could use the space if there was a little extra money. I'll always say yes to. Yeah, it's been a real problem. And speaking of storage, like I know people that were in similar situations as me, spent a lot early on, and literally just pay to store stuff. And thankfully, I'm not in that position because I just don't understand that. Like,
Yeah, pay to store is probably
expense.
the worst thing. It's pay to store things you don't need or use.
Yeah. Yeah, if it can sit in a box for a year and you're paying for that in storage, it's like, why are you even paying for that then? Like, just get rid of it.
Yeah. I'm sure you've written about this at times. Is there like should we be purging or looking at our stuff like annually? Is there a rule of thumb there?
Annually is probably a pretty good guess, actually. That it's at least what I've been doing. It was about a year ago that I sold some of my video games, and thankfully some of them actually are considered collector's items. There's a lot of retro gamers and everything out there. I was able to sell about a quarter of my video games and got over $2,000 for that.
Wow.
Just through a local Facebook group dedicated to video games. So I was certainly hitting the right audience of people to buy these games.
Well, at least you didn't have to throw them in the garbage or anything. That's pretty good.
Well, exactly. And now coming up another year, I really want to circle back and do that again. Just kind of repost it in the group, the reduced list of games. And at some point, my plan is, speaking of just having to get rid of it at some point, sort of the third step will be posting it as a bundle per system. So say I have a Nintendo and 80 games and I sell 50 more of them. It's like at the end, I'm just going to give up and say Nintendo with 30 games and
exactly.
try to get rid of it that way.
Just get rid of them all. It just comes with, right? You're not buying any specific games. So let's go back to university then. What did you take?
Marketing through a business administration program.
Okay, so you took a marketing, so you have like
diploma, because it was just a 2-year college.
Okay, 2-year college. And so you have a little bit of student loan debt, you have this credit card debt. You're able to get a job when you get out of college?
Yeah, that was actually interesting. I think at the beginning of college, I was working at a gas station, and then I was making subs. And
Subway?
Yep. Yeah, I was a sandwich artist.
Nice.
Technically, that was my last job to my current one, because I've been at my current job for over 18 years now. So
Wow.
when I left college, I couldn't find a job right away. Obviously, I was looking for something in marketing. I thought I'd be some kind of sales rep or something like that.
Sure.
But I couldn't find anything. So I actually moved back in with my parents for planned to be 6 months, might have ended up being a full year. But I moved in with them and I got a job at the local grocery store. That actually led to me working my way up into the office and everything. And so I sort of accidentally became a finance guy for a big corporation over the last 18 plus years.
Wait, so because we won't say the name of the grocery store, is that
we
preferable?
can? I don't mind.
Oh, I don't. We don't have to advertise it. I guess you're right. It's one of the big ones in Canada, and you were working there in the store, and then you went into corporate. I didn't know that.
Yeah, when I was just looking for any job, really.
Yeah.
Like when I applied at this store, I would have begged groceries. I didn't have rent because I was with my parents. I just needed to get reset because I couldn't find a job and I needed to pay off this debt.
Sure.
So I would have taken anything, but when they saw me come in with a new diploma, and this was a small town outside of the city, it was something where they said, "Oh, well, we'll have you cash sometimes, but we want you to work in the office, like in the store's office." Sort of doing some of the
so
admin
within
tasks.
the store. Yeah, so you were able to do that. So you're doing like admin stuff to start, or?
Yeah, things like different reports and changing prices through the computer there and everything. Occasionally I was out on the floor, though, if they needed an extra cashier or open and close the store sometimes. But the person that had worked there, I think he worked there for 30 years or something in that store. He was just about to retire, so the timing worked out. It was a bit of luck and just how things happen sometimes with careers, especially.
Wow. And then eventually you moved into the corporate office?
Yeah. So being in a small town with the district manager knowing that I wanted to go back to Edmonton at the time, another store was opening up in Edmonton, and we knew the one in this little town might not last due to competition.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
Again, a bit of luck and timing. He came to me and said, "Well, do you want to move over to this other store?" I didn't get any sweet deal like we'll pay your move or anything like that, unfortunately. But it was just great timing. I moved over to that store, and towards the end of that, less than a year again, I was really getting tired of a retail job. Like I said, having to go out and cash and stuff. It was very distracting when you're trying to finish a report that someone's waiting for.
Balance some numbers here.
Again, just as another form of perfect timing, I was literally thinking during the summer, I need to quit this job and get back to what I was supposed to do. I didn't get my diploma to work in a store, basically. And as soon as I came back from my maybe 1 week vacation, the new district manager in that area said, "Well, we've got this spot opening up at our head office in Western Canada that we want you to apply for." And I applied for that, got in, and after that, really my jobs almost looked the same the whole time. Just various levels of change for sure, but it's always been sort of reporting and budgeting for corporate finance.
Yeah, so from that point on, how many years was it?
In the corporate office, probably 2003, maybe 2002. Most of my career has truly been in the office, but it likely never would have happened if I didn't just have a couple lucky breaks in timing, starting off in a store 3 hours out of the city.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because we hear about, like, work your way up to management, and then you actually did that.
Yeah, exactly. It's
people don't. It wasn't your
weird
plan,
path.
but it was what worked out. But this still, you were thinking more marketing when you started, and not
exactly
not
like
finance.
Thankfully, there's certainly finance classes and everything as part of this business administration program.
Yeah.
But I was specializing in marketing, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, not truly, but out of the four options within business administration, that sounded the most interesting. It doesn't sound as boring as accounting or finance or anything like that.
Yeah, accounting is what I picked. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
I had a similar option. I have a 4-year general business degree, and you got to pick your stream as you go into the third or fourth year, right? Or for you, it was second year.
Second year, basically, yeah. The thing is, accounting sounded terrible to me.
And it does to most people, yeah.
And I wasn't even good at the classes, honestly. Like back when you had to do balance sheets on a piece of paper, and ledgers and all that. I don't think that's even a real thing now. I don't know if they still teach that, but
ledgers not so much. Everything's sort of behind the scenes in the computer now, but
exactly.
Yeah,
Like I had to learn it that way, and that was terrible.
it does help. I'll tell you that. And I learned that stuff in grade 11 and OAC accounting. That was very very helpful to understand. Like, what is this whole thing? What's the purpose of this, and why is it all so complicated? And so it's good to understand that, right? But I guess you settled into finance, and during this time, then you're still kind of erratic with your spending. You're just trying to live your life and not really thinking about personal finance yet?
Early on in there, yeah, but it probably took me till I think 2008, maybe even 2007, but likely early 2008 to really start thinking about what am I doing with my money. I was getting ready to get married or to propose at this point. That would be New Year's Eve 2007 going into 2008.
Okay. Romantic.
Is when I proposed, yeah. And I wanted to do it for Christmas, but the ring wasn't ready in time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I wasn't going to wait another year.
That's you got to wait. Oh, I missed my window the whole year.
Yeah, exactly. It was around then where I kind of realized, like, it's probably time to be an adult and start sort of reading up on all this.
Yeah, good motivation. Now, were you looking online or reading personal finance books?
I think the very first thing, and I actually kept it, I think the very first thing I did is one summer, probably the summer of 2007, actually. I could probably look at the issue, but I picked up an issue of Money Sense magazine.
Yeah.
Just before we were heading out to camp.
Okay.
And I was reading it, and I just devoured the whole thing with all these great new ideas that I didn't even know about, just in one issue. From there, literally as soon as I got back from camping, I was like, I need to do more of this. So I found a couple personal finance blogs, got some library books, and it was on from there. I just kept spending a good solid year of just devouring all this and kind of forming my own ideas about how this all fits together.
Mm-hmm. Are we talking about like RRSP and no, don't TFSA yet?
No TFSA quite yet.
Were they talking about mutual funds and investing your money versus saving and that kind of thing? Yeah,
for sure, all of it. The idea of RSPs, I don't know if I had one. I might have had one, but I didn't really know what was in it.
Not through the grocery store?
Even on my own, I think I got some mutual funds at that time, but they weren't good. I thought I knew what I was doing because I picked them thinking, well, I'm a financial analyst. I can figure this out.
You looked at the graphs, right?
Yeah. So it's basically I picked them based on past history, which isn't really the ultimate way to predict future returns.
And I'm sure fees didn't jump out as a problem yet, did they?
No, I don't think I was even looking at fees. I think I was looking at the return of that mutual fund.
Sure.
And, the huge fees weren't in there.
We didn't know about fees at that time.
Another thing I read that was huge for me that got me out of that mutual fund is I read the Little Book of Common Sense Investing, and it was very heavily based on index investing. So it really explained how index funds work, how ETFs work. That really changed things for me, where I was caught on that being average as an index is actually better because you're not sort of getting this personal active trading going on, but even all things being equal, you're paying less fees.
So you're paying less fees. You get average over time is better because you don't have the high risk and the risk of going up and down in these huge swings.
Go for the ride and be the whole market. Like you could buy a bunch of these active mutual funds, buy different sectors and everything, trying to basically recreate the entire market because you want to be diversified. Or you can just buy a really big index fund or ETF that covers the entire market. And it's simpler, you pay less fees, and in the end, you're almost certain to come out ahead because most mutual funds will underperform the index due to fees, if nothing else. Even just someone that's just sticking along and giving you average returns, they're going to lose on the fees.
They're all trying to do the same thing, basically. I mean, I guess the active funds are trying to do better than the market. But even if they do, the fees are going to bring us back down to the average, aren't they?
Exactly. And on the whole, all those mutual funds are the average. Like they're so huge. A mutual fund obviously holds more investments than you and I do.
Yeah, good point.
So in the end, a good portion of the market is tied up in these mutual funds. So other than just lucky picks, you can try to find good mutual fund managers and all that.
But you're right. It's just guessing.
Kind of, because even the best mutual fund manager can't always foresee that a certain company is going to suddenly tank the next quarter. He can try to. He can get different signals and everything else. But in the end, it's really not under their control.
Yeah, and I mean, you can get lucky with if you happen to have a Warren Buffett as your finance manager or your fund manager, because that's even he would say every single time that he'd outperform the market in a year by 20%, he would say, "I'm never ever going to do this again. It's not predictable. Don't think this is ever going to happen. We got lucky this year." He would say that to his shareholders, and that's important. So anyone that should be a red flag, right? If anybody boasts we got these returns so we can get more returns, if Warren Buffett couldn't even do that, how can any mutual fund manager claim that?
Yeah, and I've heard similar things with lately. Robo-advisors have been growing in popularity, and I've had people come to me and ask me, they're like, "Well, which one gets the best return?"
Wow.
Certainly there's if you look backwards, yes, you'll see different returns between different robo-advisors, but it's not really the point because they're trying to track the index as close as they can. There is no interference there. Sometimes it's just slight tracking errors that might give you a better return than the other, or a slight difference in the overall portfolio that they put together. But ultimately, when you're looking at something like robo-advisors or ETFs, it's more about focusing on the fees because that's something you can control. You can say this fee is 1.5%, maybe even 2% lower than a mutual fund. That's a sure thing. That's something that I know is better. And then the results are the results. You can only do so much about how those actually turn out in the future.
Yeah, when I'm in a Facebook group and somebody asks a question or they just make a comment "Oh, I've had my money with certain robo-advisor, but I'm not really happy with the performance. I think I might move to another one or two." And I'm just thinking, you're not really understanding the whole point here. It's not the market is what is moving. It's not the robo-advisor, or it's not anybody's fault. Shifting won't matter. Yeah,
all things being equal, those robo-advisors should be pretty similar. Like I said, though, a little difference in which has the more aggressive portfolio or something can make a difference.
Sure, I mean,
they don't have the exact
but it
same
also has
portfolio
more
mix.
risk, right?
Yeah, in any robo-advisor, you can kind of choose different portfolios. But you're right, the idea that they're going after a return isn't really the point. It's sort of just long-term. You're following the market. That's been proven to beat out almost everything in the long run. And long run meaning more than 10 years. So you put the money away and you basically don't look at it. I don't look at most of my investments.
Yeah, we really shouldn't, because if you look at it on even a monthly basis, you are going to be disappointed if you have any expectations of a short-term gains. And then if you do see gains, you'll be like, "Oh, I'm doing great." And that's just no way to measure what's happening. It's measured in fives or tens of years, not single years or months, right?
Yeah, and I've seen similar things with right now. Everybody's all into cannabis stocks, and it's by the time you're talking about it, it's too late. So it's kind of already done. And before that, it was Bitcoin, which I can't really even call an investment. It's more like gambling. I think
exactly. I've written a couple of posts about that for sure.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So it's always sort of this next thing. Like I do buy some stocks. I'll buy Canadian dividend stocks because I'm buying them to hold them and just not have even that slight ETF fee. I just want to hold big dividend stocks. I would never though invest in technology stocks because I just couldn't follow it. How many years ago I would have invested in things that don't even exist now because these technology companies come and go.
We only know this because we've spent some time, analyzing this whole concept, right? Of the risk you're willing to take and the knowledge that you have to have in order to actually make wise decisions in these specific securities. So you get Money Sense magazine, you're eating all this stuff up. And do you think in your head, I want to write about this someday? I want to have my own blog? Are you thinking that yet?
So after Money Sense magazine, a few library books, I started getting into blogs. I think the first blog I probably read was $1 Million Journey.
Okay.
I remember there were 6 blogs I was reading. The other 5 basically don't exist anymore. So
Really?
So $1 Million Journey is the survivor.
Wow. Is it one of the longest running personal finance blogs?
It's up there for sure. So many have come and gone. So by attrition, well, even with me, by attrition, I look like I was one of the early ones, but there are certainly blogs before me.
That's right, but you stayed and survived.
Blogging's a tough game, but so $1 Million Journey was the big one. There were some other ones, but I didn't know about the huge world of blogging in general, about all these blogs down in the US and everything. I just had my small little ecosystem of 6 personal finance blogs that I would read and I would comment on and stuff. Just like the stuff I was reading in print, it kind of started to all form in my head. And it's like, once you start to get this stuff, you kind of come up with your own version of it. Like you read one thing and then you read another thing and you kind of find yourself somewhere in the middle or something. So I thought I could add a voice there that was different than the 6 I knew of. And at first, starting a blog, it was literally like your traditional blog. It was just to get my ideas down. It was a bit of a hobby. It wasn't even how many people are going to read this. It was at least like, look, I'm online. I can read my ideas there.
Just kind of crafting, like, because nobody really spoke specifically in your language, and so you're kind of just reiterating all this stuff in a language that made more sense to you.
Kind of, yeah. I wasn't reinventing the wheel. I was just sort of taking my own take on things, almost like a form of online note taking, if nothing else. I didn't know if anyone else would read or not.
Yeah, and so what year is this?
2009. I'm just about to hit 10 years in February.
Oh wow! And so what did you have a name at the time, or was it just Tom's blog, or was it on Blogger? Where did you start?
No, it was WordPress, one of the
you started
earlier versions of WordPress. I think
site.
WordPress is now 15 years old.
Wow.
The site was Canadian Finance Blog at the time. Actually, for a brief moment, it was the Canadian Finance Blog. This almost sounds like the Facebook.
The Facebook.
But I caught on quickly that why did I call it the Canadian Finance Blog? Because my domain was CanadianFinanceBlog.com.
Yeah.
So I quickly dropped off the. Another odd naming mistake I made early on was back then almost every blogger was anonymous. And so I thought I had to be anonymous. So I just went with the username Canadian Finance because I didn't think you could put your name on there. But then I quickly caught on, like, why am I being anonymous? And I dropped that as well. I think I went to Tom for a while, and then I just went full on Tom Drake.
Now you're just writing, like what? Do you have any schedule? You're writing on whenever it hits you, whenever you want?
I tried to keep to a pretty solid schedule of 4 posts a week.
Wow. Really?
They were
that early?
They weren't always great posts, though. there was a lot of 200, 300 word things, because again, it was just me kind of getting ideas out there. They weren't always these fully fleshed how-to kind of resources. They were quick little ideas of maybe how to save money on your electricity bill or something like that. It was never these big, massive, reader-friendly posts that I try to do now. Back then, it was I think 300 words is probably a normal post for me, and it was really just trying to get these ideas down. And I said I didn't expect readers, but I did want to share these things. Like my first post, which doesn't even exist now because I've cleaned out a bunch of the old, not so useful stuff. My first post was literally just about Money Sense magazine. It's just
like how Money Sense is great and everybody should read it.
Yeah. I read this magazine. I think it's great. You can learn all these tips. Like it was literally just me sharing these things that kind of opened my eyes, and obviously it took me at least a decade too long to catch on. So if someone reads that, even though it's not much of a post, if someone reads that and they can go say, "Oh, I'm going to go buy the magazine," then that could make a big difference. Maybe it did. I don't know, but it was just like the stuff I wanted to share with people that I found just amazingly eye-opening, and I didn't seem to have a clue about 2 years before that.
Yeah, I guess that's what we all hope in a way, right? I mean, we're as bloggers, we're writing our story, we're writing our take on things, but we also want to help people who might just be looking for that one push in the right direction, and you don't know where that's going to come from. But even if you just it's a kind of a cliche line, but even if I just help one person, right? it's all worth it.
Well, exactly. That's what I was thinking. I recently had you on my podcast talking about your story.
Thank you for that.
I literally thought if just one person that has any kind of gambling or any other addiction listens to that episode and is able to turn something around, then I think that was probably worth half an hour of our time.
I think so, or ADD for that matter, because we got to keep talking about that stuff too. At the time when you started, personal finance was much more hidden from the mainstream, in terms of the robos weren't around yet. Nobody talked about fees. People were probably still paying for their bank accounts, that kind of stuff, right?
I think that's just sort of the rise of the internet, like you said with the robos, but even other banks, like some of the more online-based banks, they didn't exist, and you're right. So you had the 5 traditional banks. You paid your fees because you didn't have anywhere else to go. You went to your bank to get your credit card. You went to your bank to get your mutual funds. There wasn't for a lot of people, there wasn't a lot of shopping around. Like you weren't necessarily finding the best credit card. You certainly weren't getting the best investment advice. I don't mean to be mean about it, but sometimes if you're in a bank and you're selling mutual funds, well, it's not much different than selling a car or something. Like you're getting a commission. It's not really the client's interests at heart.
Yeah, this is a good time to do our standard a PSA in the show about how banks are not your friends and how they are businesses and how they are selling products. So
for sure,
they may be trying to help you. Absolutely. There's some great people in banks, but just don't assume that they're not also trying to make money, right? That's the one thing that we tend to forget, I think.
Exactly. And like any place you go to for a service, you're going to have people that care more about you than others.
That's right. Yeah, good point.
So you can get a good person that's actually going to find you the best mutual fund, say, but there's still always that thing, even for the best person. Like if it came down to 2 mutual funds that might be legitimately good for you, at least good in the world of mutual funds.
Good is a relative term. Yeah.
Yeah, but if there's 2 and it comes down to that coin flip, it's like, well, commissions is probably going to be in the back of their head, even if they're trying to fight that urge. It's still this idea that how are you going to choose when it comes down to it? And if their income, like they're there as a job, they're not there out of the goodness of their hearts. They're there to make money ultimately. So a commission-based model is a bit of a problem.
Well, and honestly, I don't mind that if they got down to 2 equally great products for me, if they really were great products for me, and one of them made more money for that person, and it didn't affect me and it didn't affect my returns, then yeah, please, I want you to make money too, because we all need to make money. But
yeah, for sure. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just
it's a very isolated
I guess I shouldn't have said that they were exactly the same, but maybe they were close enough. If it got really close, though, it's like I wouldn't want the only deciding factor, the remaining deciding factor, to be that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So how are your personal finances doing then at this point? You're blogging about this. You're writing it for you, but also for others. Are you just like making big changes?
Yes. In my life, I was making a lot of big changes. So I started the blog months after we got married. And it didn't take long for us also to find out we were then expecting a child on the way.
Okay, so newly married child. And are you writing about this stuff or more general stuff?
Well, this is just as I was starting the blog. So it was coming. But we found out the child was on the way. And then I started the blog. And then one more big life change is that we went and bought a house. We were in a little townhouse before, so it's not like it was our first time at home ownership, but it was our bigger jump into home ownership.
Okay.
To get a real house with not attached to anyone. So these were 3 big things between the marriage, child on the way, and we're in a new house. And this is while I was reading everything. I just started the blog. So it was all kind of happening at the same time. 3 of your biggest life events at the same time I was starting the blog. So it all kind of came together. We still had debt. As I said, it was always this constant cycle of paying it off. So it never got huge. Mm-hmm. But we did have a little bump from the wedding. We didn't have a crazy wedding. I think we saved money on every single thing we did. I was quite proud of that. Like, we never paid full price for anything, but it still doesn't make it cheap. Because you might get a discount on things, but unfortunately it's still money out of your bank account. It's not real saving.
It's still the most expensive party that you're ever going to put on.
Exactly. And it was a good party, but
Yeah.
it did increase our debt above 20,000, I think.
So you have all this new stuff, and this is consumer debt?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Everything from, I may have had a partial car loan at that time.
Yeah.
I might be mixing my time frames up a little, but I think I had a partial car loan. We had the wedding debt. Some of it was helped by family members, helping to pay for the wedding, but we still took on a lot of that. Say it was just over 20,000. So then we went into hardcore debt repayment. Every dollar we could, we would put towards the debt. I guess in a way we always were doing that because we were doing that cycle thing where you pay off the debt and then you spend it again.
But then you realize you need money and you don't have it.
So I think it wasn't just that we were putting every dollar towards debt because we were always doing that technically. It was that we changed our spending a lot so that we were no longer adding to the debt as we were paying it down.
You started spending less than you were making, I guess, once the debt was paid off.
Yeah, I got really big into frugality, trying to cut every possible expense I could, different ways to save on different utilities or canceling things completely. Just trying to cut back those expenses, how to save money on groceries, like anything that, and you could see it in the blog at the time. It was almost turning into a frugality blog. So all I wanted to write about was different ways to save money, and that's completely where my focus was for a while.
Yeah, because I guess today you might have the option of side hustle, and maybe even then you would have had the option of side hustle, but those are the two options, right? Frugality or make more money.
I'm leaning more towards making money now. Like this blogging thing's worked out.
It's worked out pretty well for you, I think.
Yeah, but it was a bit of a fluke again. I was in it early. It was started as a hobby. My biggest business goal for the blog actually was I had read a book. I can't remember. It's by Evelyn Jacks. It's a tax book. It was written with this idea of one of the best ways to save on taxes is to start a business.
Yeah.
So in my head, I was like, well, as long as I'm entering this as a business, even if I don't really make money, I'm going to get these tax deductions. and again, I was just thinking, how can I save money all the time? So that was like my only goal business wise with the blog was like, well, at least I'll get some tax deductions.
Which means you're not making any money. And
yeah.
You know how long does a CRA allow that to go on? Do you know?
I think I have in my head somewhere between 2 and 5 years. Like I don't think it's a hardcore deadline where it's like you go 2 years, then you need to make money. But I think they start looking at it. I would also assume though that they're probably looking for bigger issues. Like my expenses were always really low. I think it was making money in the second year anyway, so I never encountered that. But the idea certainly wasn't to make money. I didn't know you could, really, honestly.
Yeah. So so you're finding this out. So do you remember the first time you made money from the blog?
It took about 6 months of having AdSense ads on.
So Google AdSense.
The Google ads, the blocks everybody sees on websites with different little ads. It took 6 months to make the first $100 payout. Okay. So it wasn't even that I made $100 in a month. It's that I made $100 over 6 months and happened to make that payout.
So that was that the primary way or one of the few ways to make money at the time online?
It's the only way I knew of. Nowadays, it's almost gone the other direction. Everybody's talking about how to make money blogging, and you'll find all sorts of people with blog posts about how they're making $100,000 a month, and it's obviously it's doable, but it wasn't something that existed back then. That wasn't information that was out there. So I didn't know a lot of stuff. I didn't know about different arrangements you can make with companies directly and stuff. And to me, it was just you start a blog and you put your AdSense code on there, and that's the money you'll make. But there certainly are better ways to make money as long as you keep it honest and legit. Like you can promote products and everything. There certainly should be things that you are willing to back up what you're saying. Like either you're using them or at least you would use them.
Yeah. Right about products you
can get into a real shady area there where just like the mutual fund salesman.
That's right.
if you're promoting something based on a commission, then that's the problem. Your own morals aside, like it's just if you're promoting something you believe in, it just comes off so much more natural and proper anyways. Like, why would you want to promote something that you never used, or at least never would use? I've promoted products where, say robo-advisors. I've reviewed, I think, 5 different robo-advisors. Mm-hmm. I don't use all 5, but I've given honest reviews of all of them. So that I wouldn't give a glowing review of a payday loan company or something like that.
That's
or even a bad credit card. Like there's you got to do it as if, at the very least, as if it was something that you were interested in. You can't promote something that you sort of wouldn't be able to back up.
Because there's so much traffic on the internet, right? There's so many choices for people to go and read. Trust is, would you say trust is one of the most important things, or integrity?
Yeah, I think so. If you want anyone to keep following you, that's. I think if you're writing about something and recommending something and it's not genuine, I think people see through that. I hope so. More often than not, that they can kind of see through that, and that it's not keeping their interests in mind.
But I'm sure, like, you've written so many things over the years, I'm sure there's always somebody out there that doesn't like what you've put on the site.
Yeah, credit cards is a great one. It's always like, how can you recommend people get into debt? And like I was just saying, I'm not recommending the debt. I guess you got to know yourself too, though. Like, it's, if you're someone that's not going to be able to pay off that credit card, then yeah, you should not get a credit card.
I think people just see the surface sometimes. They don't see the content that we're actually writing about.
Yeah, and I like the analogy to a tool, and it's a quote that I'll just butcher right now, is the idea that it's like any tool. Like, you can have a hammer or a saw that can be really useful, or you could really hurt yourself with it. It's no different with a credit card. It's not the credit card, it's the person. So you have to know how you can handle that or not.
That's such a great analogy. Like, if I had an ad for like the best hammer in the world on the site, somebody could be like, why would you advertise that? I could take that and hit my hand with it and break it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we could be sitting here talking about how, and instead I was bad in college with credit cards, maybe I hit my thumb with a hammer.
Yeah,
it's like it doesn't
interesting,
change
because you're right. It's all about proper use. So just people have to look at context, don't they? I think that's important.
It's a tool that is for adults that can handle the tool.
Yeah, I really like that.
It's not mine. I did steal it from somewhere, but
I'm sure.
And I'm sure I've
steal
totally
everything from
butchered
everywhere,
it,
right? But
yeah.
I do like that you had the mind to bring it up, and it was applicable in this case. So, original words by Tom Drake.
Yeah.
So, okay, you make $100 in the first 6 months, but when does it actually? When would you say like success? I mean, that's a very relative term, but in terms of you at the time, you would have deemed the blog successful, or the traffic popular enough to not replacement income yet, but maybe a nice supplement.
I think about 3 years in.
3 years, Okay.
Is when we really made the decision where it was getting, I wouldn't call it a full-time income, but it was enough that allowed my wife to stay home.
Okay. Wow.
Because when we had our first kid, the idea was she'd do the 1 year maternity leave, go back to work. He was a difficult baby. He didn't want to sleep. Like, you'd have to rock him for 2 hours just to get him to sleep or more. And so there's, he just needed a lot of attention. And the more we looked at it, it's like, well, if you go back to work, you're only going to make so much. And then there's daycare. You're going to just barely break even. So we decided to have her stay at home. And that's where I first felt some success, because it was a small full-time income. Maybe if you're full-time minimum wage income or something like that.
Okay.
Certainly allowed my wife to not go back to work. And then we had a second kid 2 years after the first. And it was almost impossible to do the math that her working in the same kind of job she was working in, plus the daycare on 2 children, it just wasn't, it didn't make any financial sense for us at all. And thankfully the blog was supplementing that, so we could make that decision, because it's not an easy decision to make nowadays at all.
Are you writing like consistently 4 times a week, or like what's the schedule at this point after 3 years?
I did 4 times a week for the first 4 years probably. And then I heard a talk by Derek Halpern at FinCon one year, and I don't think it was the point of the talk, but he was talking more about spending more time marketing and less time just making content all the time. And somewhere in my head, speaking of coming up with your own version of things, I heard I should blog less. So
you hear what you want to hear, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I cut back quite a bit, and I should say, even when I was doing 4 posts a week, it wasn't always me. I had different staff writers on at the time. A lot of the bloggers that would kind of be the next up and comers, like Rob at Boomer and Echo, and Kyle at Young and Thrifty, Jimmy at Retire Happy. They were all staff writers for at the time Canadian Finance Blog, as they were sort of starting their sites and getting some traction. But so we were doing 4 posts a week, but it wasn't all me.
So at a certain point, you were able to redirect some of the money to hire people as opposed to all doing it yourself. But you're working 9 to 5, probably, right?
Yeah, 8 to 4, but same effect. Yeah.
So 8 to 4, Monday to Friday, and then doing this in the evenings and weekends.
Yeah, that's never changed for me. 10 years of this. It's basically I work during the day. I have family time after work, and once the kids go to sleep, it's get into the business, and that's really never changed. I've cut back a lot. I try to keep my weekends completely free, because again, family time. Basically, if I'm at home and the kids are awake, I want to spend time with them.
Yeah, of course.
But so I try to do as much as I can in the evenings, Monday to Friday, basically.
Wow.
And the weekends, evenings in general. And
this, in terms of your budget at this time, you're talking about the blog plus your full-time income is enabling you to, save for retirement and build the emergency fund and all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to make the blog sound like it's just this magical thing, because
it's not. I know
it's really a tough business plan to follow. In my case, at least, I like to call it an overnight success that took a decade. But
that's it.
It certainly helped in my case, but it could be anything else. Maybe someone's been driving for Uber for years or something.
Yeah.
Like it's just this idea that you can do something else. I don't think anyone should just rely on their one job at their career, and if that job is making them work 60 plus hours a week, there's a problem there, because they're so tied to that job and they don't have any spare time then to do something else on the side.
So just explore, do some investigation to see what that might be for you. It may or may not be a blog, or a podcast. It might not be anything online, but like Uber. Like I'm driving Uber in the morning now. And
all right.
Yeah, did I not tell you?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah, no, I started in September.
Nice.
Yeah, I do a couple of hours in the morning before everybody wakes up. It's great, right? It's just it's more of a social thing than anything, and just a way to pick up a little bit of extra money. But I just thought I'd try it. Like that's what I think. I think you should try. Like I won't be able to keep driving Uber when the baby comes in January, right?
Yep.
It actually, when this airs, I think the baby might already have come, right? I think this is probably February. So
there you go.
If I'm not mistaken, it could be March. Wow. So, nice March weather out there. Yeah, but I think everyone should just, if you don't be afraid, right? Don't, you could have just stayed in your job and learned about personal finance and kind of made changes that way. You didn't need to write about them, and you definitely weren't looking at money, but when you noticed the money come in, did you ever think of stopping the blog? No,
just the way I entered it worked well. Entering it as a hobby with no expectations, everything is looking up from there. There was never really a point where I thought like I don't want to do this. It's kind of become a big part of me. Like I identify more as a personal finance writer than I would my career. Like so many people say their career title after they introduce themselves, and
the commas, right? I'm this comma, whatever.
Yeah, is that really how you want to identify yourself at some corporate job that could get rid of you any day now? That's a
really good point.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Like I could have taken this extra time. Sure, I had this drive to spend these evenings on my blog. I could have put that into my career. I had a couple managers push me saying I should get my designation being in finance. They're like,
sure,
get your designation and then you could be a manager and work your way up like that. And none of that interested me because I was already going on the blog as well. But I pretty much stopped any kind of courses through work or anything once I had kids. It just changed my mindset. I used to go on all these different courses, and I thought it was so great that my company would pay for me to travel and take the course and kind of improve my resume that way. It was kind of that corporate ladder climbing kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And once I had a kid and I was starting the blog, I was happy to just maintain. It's like I'll keep doing a great job at what I do, but I'm not looking for the big promotion or getting my designation or anything like that. It could have worked out. It would have been fine. Like I could have used that extra time and drive to do those kind of things, and I'd make more at my day job, and maybe that would work out. Maybe the blog wouldn't have worked out, and then I would have felt like I wasted my time. But it's just a different kind of priority. But I think no matter who you are in a career, just a full-time career, I think there's a bit of risk there. I've seen way too many reorganizations in companies and people being let go, especially if you have over 30 years experience. I think it just feels real risky to me to not sort of have something else going on.
You have to be honest with yourself, like you were, and saying, that doesn't really, even though that's a path everybody thinks is the right path for me, or that seems like the way that I should be going because this is my everyday job, I'm going to focus on this other thing, and we'll see how that goes because I'm fine for now. And, I don't know if it's going to make money, but that wasn't the main point. I think you just have to, you have to explore what it is that you want as opposed to trying to follow some kind of checklist or path, right?
Yeah, definitely. And in general, no matter what someone decides to do, I got to think that having your own business has way more upside potential than anything you could do in your career. It doesn't matter what kind of raise you get that you don't even have much control over. I was just talking to Rob Engen actually on my podcast, and we were talking about how we were both getting sort of raises that weren't even keeping up with inflation. So really, you're going backwards at that point.
You have no control, right? You're not in control. I mean, this is going to sound big, but you're not in control of your destiny, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Shouldn't we all have control of that at least, or a little bit of it? Like, you would probably be absolutely manageable, if not totally okay, if you got fired from your day job right now. Am I wrong?
Exactly. Like I said, I've gone through more reorgs than most people go through in their entire career.
And you survived, yeah.
Yeah, and but I never had a concern because I do have this business that's doing just as good as my career, and it's something to fall back on. Would it make things tighter? Sure, because my wife doesn't work.
Yeah,
she does a bit of makeup and eyebrows at home on the side.
Okay,
but it's not a full-time income. So we would go from sort of me making dual income to me making a single income, and yeah, that's tighter, but it would work, and maybe the business would likely do better. if
how
I was
much
at
more
home
time would you
full-time,
have as well,
Exactly.
right? To then be able to explore what else you could do with your time. Double down on what you're doing.
There's also the lifestyle benefit of that too. If I was just doing one thing, then it would free up more time for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's been quite a grind doing a decade of working day and night, literally. So
yeah, not everybody has that ability like you have. So I mean, that's another thing to recognize is not everybody's able to write 4 posts a week, or even like you just happen to have all of this ability in your head to write that out, or just to push out the content, and that's that's pretty amazing. Not everybody can do that. There are people who can, and there are some people who can't. So don't think you can just go start a blog.
Yeah, that's true. But I also think there's people in the middle that can but think they can't.
Okay.
They'll sit around, and I agree that there's some people that can't, but there's people that just want their me time. They want to sit in front of the TV all evening and watch TV and hang out with their spouse, and that's totally fine. But if you're also complaining that you never have money and you can't do anything, then you have to kind of make that decision of maybe I should be doing something to earn a little money on the side, just trying things out, experimenting a little. There's so many options to make money now. Thanks to the internet, there's service for everything. We mentioned driving Uber, but you could be renting out a room in your house, walking dogs with something like Rover. Like there's all these options now that didn't exist before. So there's many different ways that people could try out and see what works for them.
Yeah. So, I guess the two things are, in your early days, frugality was key, right? And just analyzing and looking at what it is you're doing. Why is the money flowing out faster than it's flowing in? And then as the years go on, figure out what else you can do to make money as well. If you do those, it's like the golden ticket, right? If you have both of those things at work, the frugality plus side hustle, then I think you're going to be fine.
And there's one thing I think I got backwards with that is my focus on frugality. Unfortunately, there's a limitation to that. You can only cut so much. Right. I wish I had caught on more about the ability to make more money. Even when the blog was in its infancy, I could have been, I don't know, delivering pizzas or something. Like there's all sorts of stuff I could have been doing that probably would have had a better effect or bigger effect than setting my thermostat a degree cooler.
Yeah, that's a good point. Or just doing a bunch of research as to how much that money might save you.
Yeah, exactly.
Time.
So I know I wish I had a better focus on making money earlier on, just because I've seen that in a way, and I know it sounds a little dismissive, but you can really make as much money as you want. You have to find the way to do that, but there's no limit to that, where you can only cut back your expenses to a certain degree.
Exactly. It's technically true. You're only limited by your ability to go out there and do stuff or figure out how to do stuff. And you just got to go explore, right? And I'm glad that you did that early, because you're like the godfather of Canadian personal finance, or the god uncle. Is that a thing?
I've heard Godfather quite a few times. I think Kyle Prevost started that one, but it seems to be something that keeps coming up.
Well, it's I think it's a appropriate and complimentary title.
Thank you.
And that you sort of set the pace, or set the stage for the rest of us to be able to, and specifically a Canadian space too, which is nice. And so I think after an hour is when we actually mentioned the name of your website.
Yeah. Well, I did mention earlier it was Canadian finance blog for a long time.
It was,
but
yeah.
But I rebranded a year and a half ago now to Maple Money, just trying to get a better branding, trying to look a little more like a real big boy publication. So
you're all grown up now, Tom.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't like the word blog, even though we talked half this interview about blogging. I think the word blog maybe sounds, I think some people look at blogging in a negative way. And it's certainly not, I don't mind using the word blogger and all that. It's I just didn't want it as part of my site
part
title.
Of your site, your domain.
Yeah, at some point that was going to become a problem, I think, where people just look at it like the hobby connotation. Like if you've ever talked to someone and said you do blogging, half the conversations are probably like, you make money doing that? Is that a real thing? Like,
yeah, that's usually what comes up. I like to say podcaster, which you are now as well. The Maple Money podcast, right?
Yeah, Maple Money Show is
Maple Money Show. Perfect.
Yeah, it's I've already had you on as a guest, and
that's
I'm sure
right.
I'll have you again in the future. It's been an interesting new venture. It kind of feels like the first new thing I've done since blogging. Thankfully I have the blog I can kind of lean on to make that work out well, but it definitely gives me that new feeling like I had back when I started the blog. Well,
that's good. And you know so many people from the personal finance world in North America, and so another place to tell their stories and to share their wisdom, right? Which is like, everybody has a little bit of a tidbit of a different thing to add, right? And
like I said back at the beginning with why I started blogging, everybody's got a slightly different angle on things. You take in all these sources and you kind of sum them up differently in your own head. And then maybe you can become a blogger too, which people are doing every day, and I definitely encourage it. Just
be realistic and don't think that you're going to be a millionaire off the bat. All right. Well, thanks so much, Tom, for coming on the show and telling your story. MapleMoney.com or .ca?
Yep.
Or both?
.com.
Okay. .com. The Maple Money Show, just look it up on any podcast app or on Google. You'll find it. All right. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, thanks for having me on.
If you like this episode, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or however you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave me a 5-star rating, a review, or both. If you're already a subscriber, you're awesome. Please join my Facebook group so I can thank you personally. To find the group, go to Facebook and search for The Personal Finance Show. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Personal Finance Show. I'll be back next week with anonymous personal finance blogger, The Looney Doctor.